guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches. At the end of this video, if you found it interesting or if you liked it, go ahead and like and subscribe because it really helps me out. Thanks. I'm out training a dog. Here she is. She's a black lab. She's trying to be a good girl. I'll just take a quick second and address a point that I want to talk about. In a recent video that I made also while training a dog, I talked about Rolex and how I really favor Rolex because it has a high perceived value, and that's important to me as compared to, let's say, a Grand Seiko, which may have a lower understood value to the general public. And I think I might have given you the impression that I'm somehow really affected by what people on the street think about my watch, and actually, oddly, that can't be further from the truth. It really has to do with me and what's in me. So remember, people like our father's age, for example, they were really taken with Cadillac, and they knew they had made it when they could purchase a Cadillac. Now that's not the brand anymore, and among the youngsters, it might be the Apple Watch. It might not be the Rolex at all. But for me, in my mind, Rolex kind of says I made it. I can afford a good watch. I know it has a high value. I know it's well made. And if someone should happen to ask or notice what it is, then they're going to recognize it too. So this is something that's like a lot more in my head, that value that I place on certain brand names. So in my mind, I really like my Rolex watches because they say to me that I've made it, that I've accomplished something in a way that, a Grand Seiko isn't gonna quite fulfill. Now, I know that I'm a horologist, and I'm not spelling that the traditional way. I'm taking the word whore and adding ologist, and that's kind of a little bit me. You know, my friend Dennis Van Patten says I'm a Rolex horologist, and it's correct. You know, to a certain degree, I readily admit it. It's a brand that I think, to a certain extent, you can't go wrong with. You have to buy it right. You have to hold it long enough. Don't buy it new. Don't buy anything new. It's insane. You do not have to be the first guy to jerk off and sweat in your watch. You just don't. I mean, did you ever sit down on a public toilet? Trust me, there's been 1,000 ass cheeks, 1,000,000 ass cheeks there before you. You know, if you're weirded out about not having a pristine brand new watch, fine. You know, just take it to a jeweler and have it sonically cleaned, or dip it in alcohol, for Christ's sake. Anyway, I'm going to talk more about this subject, but I did want to clarify. Yes, I like brands that reflect a high perceived value, but it's not because I expect people to compliment them on the street. Hey, you know what? In fact, let me talk about that real quick. The only watch that I have ever had anybody call out and talk to me about on the street, it was a Rolex, but it was probably like the cheapest Rolex you can get, and that is, it was a used Polar Explorer, which I'm going to review. I really do like the watch, but I think what caught this other fellow's attention was the fact that it had a white face, and you don't usually, see that on a sport-looking watch with a GMT hand. So, the cheapest Rolex watch I own, like $10,000 cheaper than the most expensive one that I own, that's the only one that ever got called out. So I'm not really experiencing a situation where I'm flaunting my watch in front of people's face. By the way, I'm wearing a marathon watch today. I often wear that when I'm working. I don't feel bad if I bang it into a kennel or a crate. There she is. She's wandering around a little bit. No, I'm not fishing for compliments. I don't go, oh, hello, how are you? So nice to meet you, when I'm wearing a good watch. It's not like that for me at all. I think that people who expect compliments on their watch are going to be disappointed. And, on our Facebook group, Modern Day Watch Enthusiasts, come join us if you can take a little bit of heat. But in our group, there are some people who report getting lots of compliments on watches, and I don't know who they are. Nobody ever mentions my watch to me. I think people are a lot more likely to notice your cell phone, than your watch. So for me, it's not about receiving approval from the general public. I might have created that impression. It's more a sense of self-satisfaction. I kind of want to wear something that I'm really proud of, and I think that's what it is. However, there is definitely a place in my heart for the beloved beater watch, and I want to talk a lot more about that in a separate video. But some of us are horologists. Me personally, I'm a horologist, and I like it that way. It helps me to confine my buying decisions to beaters that are sensibly priced, have a place, but mostly to collect really good watches. watches that I could convert back into cash if I need to at a later date, and that's in my video called "Will Your Rolex Go Up in Value?" So if you're interested in preserving your net worth and turning cash into watches, but then having the option of turning your watch back into cash, you might have a look at that video. Hey, I wanted to do a quick PS to this video, something that I forgot to talk about before, and that is in the comments. Here's what I want to know. Do people compliment your watches? Do they notice if you're having to wear something fine? You know, are you one of these people that's mysteriously getting compliments on your watches? Because never happens to me. So I'd like to know about that. And the other thing I want to know about is, do you ever bond with people over watches? Like you're on an airplane and there's a dude sitting next to you and he's got a fabulous watch and turns out he's a collector and you guys can compare notes. Because I'll tell you what usually happens to me is I say something about the guy's incredibly fabulous watch and he's like, oh yeah, I don't know anything about it. My wife got it. And it's a frickin', in the case that I'm thinking about, I'm sitting on a plane next to a guy wearing a beautiful vintage gold Daytona, solid gold Daytona. And he didn't know or care about watches, but he just had this beautiful timepiece. So, do you notice other people's watches and do they notice yours? Tell me in the comments. Anyway, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches.